All right, so we finished the tray. As you can tell, it's pretty full. And then what we do just to get these guys started is we'll make a kind of a holding tray. This is a solid tray with a piece of capillary mat in it that's wetted down, and we put that in a more rigid tray just to hold it and keep it sturdy, because these solid trays are actually pretty thin plastic, so they tend to break pretty easy.
Especially the corners.
Yeah, the corners are the worst. So the whole idea of this weed bottom tray will have somewhat of a little bit of contact with the moisture of the capillary mat. So once things begin to germinate in these blocks, there's already a lot of moisture in the blocks. So that's going to get the seeds started. And then as the roots go, once these guys get up and we get like about, I'd say a good 50, 60, maybe even more % germination on them, we'll take this tray out and use the air pruning technique by putting it on a rack that has an open bottom to it. And then be just watching them. If we need to water them, then what we do is we come and we use a mixture of a little bit of our JLF fertilizer, and we'll put it in one of these solid trays and just, soak like to the bottom half until these guys absorb the JLF fertilizer, and the blocks will keep their integrity to them, and then you can pull it out and then just put it up on the shelf again. So that's kind of how the system will work, and then these guys will grow on. Now these onions, you're going to have to help me with this, but I think they take at least 2 weeks to begin to really start to germinate.
The back of the package should say.
Yeah, I think our experience has been it's been about 2 weeks before they really start coming up.
I thought that it was something like 7 to...
Yeah, in a perfect world.
Yeah. Depends on, are we going to put them on a heat mat necessarily, or just ambient temperature?
I think in here, we do have heat mat. I guess what I'll do is I'll set it to a minimum so it doesn't go below 65, but we also have a heater here in the greenhouse. And the only reason I'd be worried about the temperature would be from, if we drop really cold.
Well, there is a possibility coming up of 28 as a low.
Yeah.
But
so I guess what I'm looking at is I'm not, going to keep it super hot.
No.
And the greenhouse itself will be probably at about 60. And that probably, I guess, maybe explains why it's going to take about 2 weeks, huh? Duh. But anyway, so these guys are ready to plant. And we've got 4 different types of onions.
3 yellows.
3 yellows. These are all storage onions.
Oh, yeah.
And
well, some store longer than others.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a range.
So none of these are sweet onions in the sense like a Walla Walla or Vidalia or something like that, right? And then we have a red.
We have a red.
And that must be for hamburgers.
That, and I think we were talking about that might make a interesting combination with our pickles and our pickled beets and things like that, to give it more of a zip.
Okay, so all these onions are hybrids, which means they, any seed you try to save off of them if they went to seed wouldn't do you any favors.
Right, but the other thing is we're not doing sets.
No, we're not.
And the sets, we used to do the sets in the very beginning, but you were limited to a white onion, a yellow onion, and a red onion. And this gives us, the opportunity to experiment and try different varieties of onions to see what we like.
So, yeah, and what we found is the varieties Bridger and Patterson have been really good for us. We're going to try out a new one called Yankee. That's also a yellow storage onion. And I guess the Yankee one has a film coat on it, but the others are no coating, no pelletization or anything like that. And then Cabernet is the red. What we're going to do is we're going to multi-sow in these blocks. So I know that kind of might be seen as a little counterintuitive to some folks, but what happens is onions are really shallow growers. So when they bulb up, they tend to push up and away from each other. So if we put, like in a block this size, if we put 3 to 4 seeds in it, that we'll get, the onions won't be super huge, but they'll be, like about that big, palm size, and good enough for, the uses that we want. And it's an efficient use of space. So,
because our space out in the garden
yeah,
is, now we're going to have 2 more
right,
varieties, and that's going to take more space.
right. So we're going to find additional growing space for this kind of stuff that shouldn't be bothered by deer. So being outside is the controlled garden space shouldn't be an issue. But the thing about the multi-sowing and that is it is efficient in use of the space. And I think personally, Whopper onions are kind of impressive to look at, but when you're kind of cooking with them, too small is a pain, but too big is kind of a problem too. So it's nice to be able to take an onion and say, yeah, that's good for the meal.
Right.
And that's kind of how...
Using the whole onion instead of trying to find a place to put it.
Right.
For the next meal.
And so each tray would then have the potential of somewhere around 400 onions, roughly.
Which seems like a lot.
Seems like a lot. So it'll take, each packet here has 250 seeds, so it'll take a packet and a half, roughly, to do the tray.
I don't have a packet and a half of the 2 new ones.
No.
So you might want to just go with 2 in those.
So what we'll do is, there's multiple ways you can seed these guys. They're fairly small onion seeds. And, if you wanted to be really particular about it, you could sit there and use...
Squeeze them in.
Keep tapping until they all go in. Or you can just go, well, you know what? I'm going to just kind of go, well, I know I got 1, 2, 3. That's good enough. Something that one actually had 4. So that's good too. So it's somewhere around 3 or 4. And that's the whole idea. And it goes a little faster than trying to... I think I was short 1 there, so there. So I may, goof up and only have 3 in some and 4 in another. So I'm just going to base it on the fact that, when I get there, I'm going to have somewhere 300 to 400 onions out of this. And honestly, not all onions produce the same. Now we're at 45th, nearly the 45th parallel. And so our types of onions bulb into the long day, or actually grow vegetatively into the long day and bulb after the long day. So that's the kind of the style we're looking at. These would be then ready for harvest sometime. It's usually for us, it's around the end of July. They've finished gaining their size.
And if you want more information on long day, intermediate day, and short day, you just go to the Johnny's Growing Library or under onions, and they have an excellent explanation of what long day, intermediate day, and short day onions do. They're sort of, the short days are at the bottom of the U.S., the Floridas and Texas and stuff. The intermediate go through the middle of the United States, and the northern ones are all the rest of us that are up north. So check that out if you want to understand long and short day.
Yeah, it's your day length really drives
bulb production.
So that's why, if you take the variety of a Vidalia Sweet from Georgia that just does fantastic down there, named after Vidalia, Georgia, evidently, and try to grow that in Walla Walla, Washington,
it won't work.
You're going to have a really crappy onion. And
that's
vice
why you
versa.
have Walla Walla onions. They work up here.
So depending on where you live, I guess that's what you get. But that's okay. That's
why they have so many varieties.
So you notice I changed my technique because, well, this seems to work better.
Yeah. You find what works.
It's almost like I've never done this before.
Except for when you do it every year.
Yeah. Except when you only do it once, you go, how did I do that? No, not that bad. Senior moments, right?
No.
So that's the kind of the idea, and then once we finish, I only got 2 in that one. Once we finish putting the seed in these guys, we're going to cover this with a very fine vermiculite. And that way it'll kind of retain the moisture over the top, but it's not going to really, it'll be porous enough to allow a little bit of air to get in. And it'll also prevent any kind of like, sometimes folks say, well, you can get algae growth on these soil blocks and it's just horrible. Then they get to the point where you can't even, get moisture into them. Vermiculite is a method to help, kind of control that. It doesn't stop it 100%, but it definitely helps control it. Other people try to use things like, a cinnamon extract or, we've tried all these kinds of things. And frankly, I think it's just a matter of, vermiculite seems to be the best. Trying to use,
If we don't get as much algae on things like this that move fairly quickly through the system,
that's
the
really
ones that are the worst for algae and whatnot is Lysianthus.
Yeah, something that, Lysianthus takes, it's roughly almost like 12 weeks by the time you get it until you get it in the ground.
No, I think it's closer to 16.
Is it?
And this
I know it's a long
depends.
time.
But
it's like
it can
3
sit
months.
in a mini block for a long time before it's up to any kind of size to transplant. And that's where the algae gets, and most overwater and get that to be worse. So, but I don't think onions is that big of a problem with algae. We'll see.
No, this is like say week 3, and we're going to be onions actually do take a little bit of time to grow on. They kind of come up and they're a little weeny when they first come up. They're like little blades of grass, and to get to the transplant stage, these probably are not going to go in until at least 15th of March. Somewhere in there in that time frame. And so
that's why we're starting them
That's why we're starting them now, because they're a little slow too. They're not as fast as some things, like if you were starting bean plants or sunflowers or something like that. I mean, they're fast. Sunflower germinates within 7 days, you can get it in the ground. So these things have a couple of weeks to get, fully germinated, and then they're going to take several more weeks to grow on, probably 6 weeks to grow on. So by the time you get finished with it, you're right around the middle of March.
The other thing about onion seeds is that you want to get new seeds every year.
Yeah, they're only really, they may germinate, but you really got to overplant.
Yeah, it's more of it. They're at their best with, only the current season. They don't seem...
It's basically all alliums, right? Because leeks are kind of the same way.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. Right. New shallots or new leeks and all of that. So, yeah, you're right.
Okay, so this is the vermiculite we're using. And you can get these, garden places. You look for the fine type. They make various different grades of it. Most garden centers will probably have the fine stuff because it's probably the most commonly used. And then I just take a bunch of my hand and then just kind of, squeeze it out. That way I can kind of control it and make sure it's covered. I'm not looking for putting a coat on. I'm looking to just kind of fill my little divot in a little bit. Doesn't have to be perfect. So as you can see, you can still see some of the block. Some people will say, why are you wasting so much time? Just take a handful and throw it on there. But I know. I just like not wasting stuff, because if I put too much on, it's kind of a waste.
Well, the other thing is on seeding is this is the most critical part of the venture. If you blow it at the seeding and you've got a finite amount of seed, like you just pointed out, we only had X amount and it didn't fill it, you now are stuck. You wait for new seed, maybe miss the time frame. So I always, am most careful on the seeding because to me it's like the critical. Get it up, get it right, get it germinated, and then you can, do what you like.
So I'm using my hand just like a squeezer, it's squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go. And that way you control the flow. So, I mean, that's really highly technical term.
Oh, yeah. Patent that.
Yeah, that's a trademark, yeah. And nobody in human history has ever done this before.
This squeeze
particularly on YouTube. Who'd have ever thought this? It's genius.
It's genius. So basically, this is what we're gonna do for all the rest of the onions, and we'll also be doing it for our shallots and leeks.
Yeah, we have this week. We have to do leeks, onions, peas, sweet peas. Sweet peas? Peas.
Yeah, garden kind.
Snap peas already, or snow peas?
Snow peas.
Okay, snow peas, spinach. Then on the flower side, we have foxglove, lisianthus, pansies, and verbena.
Yep.
So we're going to be busy. It's amazing. It's January.
That's just week 3. That I have week 4, 5, and 6 also all picked out.
Yep.
And that, did you say lisianthus?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, because lisianthus is
kind of getting late for that, but it'll still work for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got the vermiculite on there. We moistened it down. We talk about these guys, humidity domes. We're going to probably germinate this on. Like I said, our greenhouse, we keep it at about 60, but I don't know. I mean, I could go either way on a heat mat. We'll probably just put it on a heat mat. I put it at about 70 for till we start seeing some germination. And then when you look at this and you say, okay, the humidity dome's only for one reason, and that's just to kind of keep the surface from drying out. So when we put that on, it can seal up like that. And if you see humidity going on the inside, condensation on the inside, it's like you're getting a lot of moisture in there and a lot of heat. So it's rising up and condensing on the plastic. If you see that happen, you just move the plastic back so you get a vent of air coming in and air going out. And that's basically all there is to that. Once the plants germinate, the humidity dome's not really needed. So it's like once you start seeing germination and it's substantial, like 20, 30%, the humidity dome's probably not going to do you any good at that point. So you'd be better off taking it off to prevent anything, like a fungal disease. You want to get airflow around those plants as soon as possible. So never leave the humidity dome on there, trying to grow your plants in there, thinking you're trapping extra heat in there to help them. You're actually doing more harm than good. It's only just for the very beginning. And then, like I said, once they're growing, we'll probably, once we got a substantial germination where it's, the majority of it looks like it's up, we'll probably start a weekly fertilizing at that point. Although there's a lot of fertility in that compost and with the minerals we added. So if we we'll use our JLFs and probably just a general grass-based one and use it in a very light manner and just kind of look at it and see how the plants are doing. So I always kind of tend to look at the fertilization as not being so rigid, but watching the plants and see how they're doing. Do they need a little boost or are they doing okay? And I certainly wouldn't do it any more than once a week just to get it going. And once we get to that point, we'll do a video on how we do watering of the blocks and fertilizing of the blocks. So, any other questions?
Nope, I think we've covered it all. We just have to finish that and everything else.
Yeah. So, thanks folks for joining us this week, and
try soil blocking.
Try soil blocking again. We're coming back to it just because, frankly,
we now have room.
We now have room, and frankly, we have the time to do it. And I think it's going to make a better transplant.
Yeah.
Because these guys, they'll grow right in the ground.
Right. Skipping a step,
which
is real important.
Not have to worry about any plastic involved, and everything should be in good shape.
Right.
So thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe out there, and we'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.